You probably don't even realize when you say it. It comes out automatically, dressed as empathy, disguised as perspective, and yet it slowly kills connection, stifles vulnerability, and pushes people away even when all you wanted was to help. The phrase, at least 2 words, so small, so well-intentioned, so incredibly damaging. At least you still have a job. At least you weren't married. At least you're healthy. It sounds like comfort. It feels like dismissal. Every time we use it, what we're really saying is, please stop feeling that. It's making me uncomfortable. The person you're speaking to might nod politely. They might even agree with you. But inside, something closes. A wall goes up. They've just learned that their pain, when exposed, will be met not with presence, but with pressure to feel better immediately. And that's not empathy. That's erasure. Rule 1. Validate before you reframe. Here's where most conversations go wrong. We try to move people out of pain before we've even acknowledged they're in it. Think about it. If someone trips and falls, the first thing they need isn't a map to a better destination. They need someone to stop, get down to their level, and say, that looked like it hurt. Are you okay? But in conversations, we skip that part. We hear, I feel like I'm failing, and we respond with, at least you're trying. We hear, I feel so alone, and we say, at least you have people who love you. It's not evil. It's just premature. Reframing is powerful, but only when the person feels emotionally seen first. Validation isn't agreeing with someone's pain. It's recognizing that their emotions are real and worthy of acknowledgement. It sounds like, that must be exhausting. I hear you. Thanks for telling me. That's a lot. When you validate someone first, you're saying, I'm not in a hurry to change how you feel. I just want you to know your feelings matter. That builds safety. And when people feel safe, they naturally open up to new perspectives. But try to reframe too soon, and you send the opposite message. Your pain makes me uncomfortable. Let's skip it. Validation slows down the moment, and in that pause, connection has room to grow. Let's think about a real-life example. You've had a rough week. Work is chaotic, family issues are piling up, and you feel the weight of it all. You turn to a friend to vent, and they immediately tell you to look on the bright side. Sure, it's well-intentioned, but how does it make you feel? It feels like your friend isn't really hearing you. The things you're going through aren't being seen for what they are, and you're left with the sense that your emotions don't matter. In contrast, a friend who says, that sounds really tough, what's been the hardest part, immediately creates a safe space for you to express your frustration, sadness, or anxiety. They give you permission to be where you are emotionally. Rule 2. Empathy is not about you. One of the most common traps we fall into when someone shares their pain is this. We respond with our own story. I know how you feel. That happened to me once. It seems like the right thing to do, drawing from your own experience to show them they're not alone. But this form of matching often backfires. Why? Because in that moment, it shifts the emotional spotlight away from them and onto you. Suddenly, the conversation becomes about your pain, your solution, your memory. What they hear is, you've had 5 minutes. Now let me take the mic. Real empathy isn't about proving you've been there. It's about proving you'll stay here with them in this moment, even if you don't fully understand it. Empathy requires humility. The humility to say, I haven't been through that, but I'm here to listen. The humility to resist the urge to fix, compare, or one-up. Think of it like this. When someone opens their heart to you, they're not asking for a mirror. They're asking for a witness. They want someone who will simply hold space for their truth without rushing to insert their own. Of course, there's a time for sharing your experience, but it has to come after you've fully honored theirs. Otherwise, your story isn't connection. It's interruption. Imagine a colleague comes to you, visibly stressed about a work project. You've been in similar situations, and immediately you want to reassure them with your own story of overcoming stress. You say, I've been there. Let me tell you what I did. But in that moment, your colleague wasn't looking for advice. They just wanted to be heard. They wanted someone to acknowledge how they're feeling without jumping to solutions. The best response is to ask them, what's been the hardest part for you, instead of jumping into, this is how I fixed it. That way, you offer them space to process their emotions on their own terms. Rule 3, ditch the platitudes. Offer presence instead. Everything happens for a reason. You'll come out stronger. This too shall pass. These phrases are often said with the purest intentions, but they land with a dull thud. Why? Because when someone is in pain, they're not looking for meaning. They're looking for presence. They want someone who will stand beside them in the darkness, not someone who flicks on a motivational flashlight and says, cheer up, it's not that bad. Platitudes are convenient. They wrap pain in a tidy bow and allow the conversation to move on. But pain doesn't live in tidy bows. It lives in the messy, unresolved spaces. And to be truly supportive, you have to be willing to sit in those spaces. You have to resist the pressure to make it better and instead say, it's okay to not be okay right now. Real support sounds less like a TED Talk and more like quiet companionship. It's messy, it's uncomfortable, It's often silent. But that's where healing begins. Because when someone realizes they don't have to perform joy or force perspective, they feel safe. And from that safety, clarity emerges. Not because you handed them a quote, but because you gave them room to breathe. One of the best ways to create a supportive atmosphere is to model vulnerability. Imagine a friend who's going through a tough time, and instead of giving them a motivational pep talk, you share your own struggle. I know it's hard. I've been there, and it feels like it won't end. But I'll walk through this with you. This doesn't take the focus off their pain. It actually reinforces it. It says, I'm here even when things are messy. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. And that's when true healing can happen. You can't rush it. You can't fix it with words, but you can offer your presence, and that makes all the difference. Why we keep saying, at least, and why it's so hard to stop. The urge to say at least is deeply human. It comes from our own discomfort with sitting in unresolved emotions. We don't like to see the people we care about suffer. We want to offer them a ladder out of the pit, even if they're not ready to climb. Saying at least gives us the illusion of progress. It makes us feel like we've done something helpful, but helpfulness isn't about speed. It's about alignment. And what most people need isn't a ladder. They need someone to sit beside them in the dark and say, you're not alone here. We say at least because we think optimism is the answer to pain. But what people really need is validation. They need to feel that their pain is real before they can move through it. Otherwise, it just stays buried, ignored, but not gone. And the more we default to at least, the more we train the people around us to keep their struggles to themselves. Over time, conversations grow shallow, trust erodes, vulnerability disappears. Not because people don't want to connect, but because they've learned it's not safe to be fully honest. What happens when we change this? Imagine a world where people felt safe to speak their truth, where sharing wasn't met with minimization but with curiosity, where no one felt the need to apologize for their feelings. That kind of world starts with one conversation, one person brave enough to hold space without rushing to fill it, one person who chooses presence over platitudes. The moment you stop saying at least, you become that person. You become the person others come back to. Not because you always know what to say, but because you know how to stay. You become the rare kind of friend, partner, or leader who creates emotional oxygen, space to feel, to be seen, to not be okay. And the ironic part? That's what helps people heal. Not the advice, not the reframing. The space, the safety, the presence. Final word, the courage to stay in a world addicted to speed, silence, and solution. Choosing to be present with someone's pain is a radical act. It requires slowing down. It requires letting go of your need to be right, wise, or helpful. It requires courage. But every time you resist the urge to say, at least, every time you choose to validate instead of reframe, to listen instead of fix, to stay instead of speak, you become a builder of trust, a safe place, a soft landing. That's what transforms conversations. That's what deepens relationships. That's what keeps people coming back. Not to be saved, but to be seen. So the next time someone opens up to you, don't reach for a silver lining. Don't tell them what to be grateful for. Just be there. Let them feel. Let it be messy. Let it be real. Because that is what they'll remember. Not your advice, not your cleverness, but the feeling that in that moment, their truth was safe with you.